if you want good nutrient-dense food in your garden, then you need to have good, alive, nutrient-dense soil. Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We are out here this evening, early evening. We'll say afternoon, it's early evening. We're out here in the garden, actually, okay? Not exactly much in here. See? Not exactly much in here. Pretty empty, right? Now, as you can see, I've got a bunch of leaves in here. You can hear me walking through them. I've got some piles of used bedding there. So piles of used bedding from our chicken coop. We've got some little bit of carrot scraps from our maple glazed carrots that Angela made last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. So we have things in here that we've put in the garden on purpose. Reason being, we are trying to build soil. All right, building soil in your garden is a very important deal. Very, very important to try to build soil in your garden when you're not growing food. All right, it's very important. The reasons being, it's good to make your garden alive. Okay, you need your soil to be alive with beneficial bacteria and worms and things of that nature. Just things that stuff that makes your soil alive, because that produces better food. So if you want good nutrient dense food in your garden, then you need to have good, alive, nutrient dense soil, right? And it's very simple. It's a lot. There's a lot of things you can do to get that. You can do a lot of regenerative agriculture practices. I know most of the time we hear that term, we think it's only for people who have massive amounts of land, or who have a good rotational system for their cattle or things of that nature. And that's all true, that's good, and that's part of it. But you can do regenerative agriculture practices in your backyard garden, a basic backyard garden, right? It's very simple, but yeah, it's something that I think a lot of times we neglect as backyard gardeners. And so one of the things, several things that we're doing, a few of the things, we use leaves. So we got the dried leaves that fall from these trees that are not on my property. But they fall onto my property. So instead of being annoyed by them, I let them fall in my yard, and we rake up most of them and we'll put them on the garden. We'll then also take used bedding like this from our chicken coop. See, very used, broke down bedding, and we'll put that in here. We'll spread that around. I've got vegetable scraps buried in here, and over down here, I've talked about this before, but we used crimson clover and planted a cover crop. See, right here is some of the clover coming up. All right, several of that all across through here. And so that cover crop will also produce nitrogen. So what this is going to happen is the leaves are going to break down, they're going to produce nitrogen in the soil. The bedding is going to break down, it's going to have nitrogen, things like that in it, because, well, chickens manured in it and composted it down. So we're just building good, loose topsoil for our garden. And that's something that we really need to work on as backyard gardeners, is focusing on building good soil and using these regenerative agriculture practices even in a small space. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to spread this out, spread out all the bedding, mix it in with the leaves, and then I'm going to have to wet it down. Okay, and once I get that done, we're going to do something else to try to ensure that this soil breaks down, and creates good soil the best way we can. So now we've got these leaves spread out some, we've got the bedding spread out some, as you can see right here. So I just took the piles, tried to get the bedding on top of the leaves to help the leaves break down a little bit more, spread it out. I'm trying to concentrate this stuff in areas that we know maybe this part of the garden needs a little help. You know, like back here, we haven't concentrated on this part as much in the past years as we have maybe sections over this way. So I know the soil right here is good. I know that when we planted our tomatoes and everything there this past year, that soil's great. It's like a foot of topsoil. It's doing wonderful. So I'm good there. I'm gonna keep adding to it, obviously, but it's good. But I know like this top end over here is a little less good, and back here is a little about the same. So it's a little rougher in those spots. So we're trying to focus on those areas. Watered it down really well. Watering it down just helps the decomposition process once you put your silage tarp on there. So we've got a silage tarp that it only covers about 2/3 of the garden. Okay, it doesn't go all the way down, maybe a little over half, maybe not even. So it only covers about this section right here all the way down to about right here. So I really focused these efforts of the leaves and everything on this part, because that's the part I can cover with the silage tarp, and essentially we're going to be composting in place. All right, so I'm gonna get the silage tarp on there and we'll talk about that. All right, here's the end result. Here's the silage tarp. What it's going to do is when you put it down, you put the white side underneath, because white will reflect the sun. What we want to do is absorb the energy from the sun. So black does that. So the black side will absorb the energy from the sun, should keep the ground a little bit warmer. As we get into the spring, it should heat it up, but it should at least keep it from freezing too much over the winter here in Southwest Ohio. But it's also going to keep it airtight as much as possible. You try to weight down the edges. I'm using T-post that we had in our garden to weight down the edges, keep it from flying around, but also keep it as airtight as possible. And it will also help keep it warmer if there's no airflow in there. So you're going to do that. It should help break down everything that's in there. It can also help fight disease. If you've got some disease in there, if your ground gets warm enough, it can help fight that disease. But essentially it's just going to help us compost in place, like I've been saying. So you can take, you know, whatever you have, you can, if you want to compost with it, I mean, you can throw, you know, green scraps and things like that in there, raw vegetable scraps like we've done, bury them in the middle of, you know, leaves, some kind of wood chips, bedding from your chicken coop if that's what you got, you know, things of that nature, and then compost in place. And that's going to help break down that stuff, make good topsoil, make your soil alive. It's going to encourage worm growth, encourage good bacteria, again, and just make your soil alive. That's the thing, is make good soil, make your soil alive, and you should be able to have better vegetables in that manner. Okay, so those are some regenerative agricultural practices that you can do in your backyard, no matter how much space you have. If you have an in-ground garden, you can do some regenerative ag practices. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. Again, my name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. I love you guys. God bless you and goodbye.